everyone. I'm Carrie Zier, VP of eXp Luxury, and I am your host today on Luxury Legends and Leaders. What is Luxury Legends and Leaders? We're here every month interviewing some of the top legends and leaders around the world. And today is no exception. We have one of the very best. And why I'm excited about today's talk is it is relevant to what's going on in our market today. We know there has been a definite market shift throughout. I'm speaking from the United States right now, and actually I'm in Las Vegas right now. How about this view? But I've talked to many agents across the U.S., and I know that we are having tough conversations. And many times it comes up with, what do we say? How do we handle those? And so I want to bring up someone that I have admired for a very long time, even before I was EXP. And this is Renee Funk. Welcome.
Hello, Carrie.
Yes, Renee is co-founder of the Funk Collection, and you have done just an amazing career. You've won all kinds of accolades. What I love most about you is how you give back to our community. I always speak of those agents that are always on the front row, learning, being students of the game, as they're always pouring into the community as well. And I can't say enough about you. So welcome, and tell us a little bit more about your career and give them a little bit of background before we dive into all things tough conversations.
I love it. And thank you, Carrie, for inviting me to share some time together today. I loved on our prep call that we went real deep, real fast on some of the obstacles facing real estate agents in 2025. And I know we're going to unpack. I'm a co-team leader and co-founder of the Funk Collection, brokered by eXp Realty in Orlando, Florida. Fun fact, from my house that I live in Windermere, every morning when I walk my dog, I get to hear Walt Disney's train from my neighborhood. So yes, the Funk Collection. This girl right here is that close to Magic Kingdom. First joined eXp Realty in 2017. eXp was somewhere around the 4,000 agent mark. eXp was not yet in every U.S. state, and certainly not yet establishing an eXp luxury division and certification. I've seen a lot. I've lived a lot, and I get the pleasure to work with, train, and coach the most amazing real estate talent, of which makes it really easy for my feet to hit the ground on Monday morning, because we need to love what we do. We're faced with enough obstacles as entrepreneurs that if we're not loving what we're doing, then what the heck are we doing here?
I love when you say that. And, a lot of newer agents in the business, I want to unpack of where we are in 2025. You've been, I think you said 14 years in the business. I'm 20 years in the business, but I know a lot of agents that maybe this is their 5th, maybe their 8th year, and they haven't gone through the market shifts that we've seen. Yeah. I started in 2005. I lived through the short sale time. I actually bought a brokerage through that time. So we've seen different markets, over time. So now, and I've always said markets obviously are cyclical. They change, but this one feels different than the rest. It's when people, we came out of COVID, people went in to buy. We had a lot of that. It was 2021 was a great year to be in real estate, right? But the prices were high, and now we're seeing the effects of that now. So you and I talk, and I love when you and I talk straightforward, and here's the facts, not sugarcoating so much. What is your take on the market now? Here we are in summer of 2025. We see listings sitting on the market. We've got more realtors in the field than we've ever had. We don't have enough buyers, or they're sitting on the fence. And so what is your take on it?
The market condition that many agents are facing is an agent currently either has context that you just mentioned, Carrie, of 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, understanding the changes that happened in 2012, 13, 14, 15, understanding the market that led up to 2020 with a pandemic, or agents do not have the context of that pre-pandemic market and the many seasons that have been experienced. While I acquired my real estate license 14 years ago, I get the pleasure to work with my favorite realtor, AKA my husband, Renee Funk, who he and I have been together for almost 25 years. He's been in real estate for north of 25 years. And so I am a real estate agent by proximity for multiple decades. Important to note that because I've lived through, thrived through, and understand the financial and economical collapse that took place in 08, 09, 2010. What it took to build a business through those times right here in Central Florida, and then saw many seasons in the marketplace throughout the years leading up to 2020. 2020 is a definite line and benchmark for any real estate agent because pre-2020, if you have your real estate license, you have the gift of context to understand that real estate markets in many cases are cyclical and that skill sets agents possess, we sharpen our tools, and then sometimes the market changes and we take that tool and we put it in our pocket and we don't use that tool for a while. So the other piece of context that many real estate agents are facing a lack of is if you acquired a real estate license 2020 to date, what you saw is rapid real estate markets of 2021, 2022. And those are unicorn years. I think we can all agree what we experienced post-pandemic in almost every market are unicorn years. And then we wake up in 2025 and we say, what the heck? We titled this live stream Tough Conversations, right? And we're both in the luxury real estate markets. The reality is the tough conversations facing real estate agents are applicable to any real estate agent. And certainly when we look at the conversations that need to be having right now between agents and clients, there's a clear distinction of agents who don't have the context of those years prior, or you do. And one of the number one tips of any agent, if you had your license 5 or less years, don't worry. This is not anything wrong about you. You're amazing. What it is you need to make sure that you're sitting at the table with agents who can say, I lived through, thrived through 08, 09, 2010, 2012. Yes. I remember when we only had listing term of time of 12 months. If I go back to any luxury listing here in Windermere around the 2012, 2013, 2014, and some years after that, average days on market, if we saw average days on market at 120 days, you don't take a listing for less than 9 months to 12 months period. Most agents today, their mind goes a little haywire when you say, yeah, I know, and I remember taking listings for a year. You have to. So this goes back to, Carrie, is what are the conversations we need to be having right now to say, number one, don't listen to the news. Don't listen to the narratives, because quite frankly, where I come to you from right now in Windermere, Florida, we're still seeing a low inventory market in most communities. I'm not saying all of Central Florida is all of low inventory. What I'm saying is it's segmented, it's hyper local. So don't always believe everything you hear on the news, and speaking with a professional who has a portfolio of business in the market is critical. And then we fast forward to, Carrie, is what are those conversations agents need to be having?
Absolutely. And I love so much of everything you said. And, you know, in this market, as you said, some tools may not have been used before. And it's kind of like working those muscles again. If you haven't been to the gym in a while, at first they feel a little sore and maybe a little scary, but that's what we're here today. And I've actually compiled some of the top questions that agents are seeking advice on in this market. And yep. One of them you've already addressed a little bit, but let's go a little deeper. You know, yes, we would all like, you know, a year listing contract. And I agree with you. I'm still old school on that. If I go get a listing, I put down 1 year. For someone that maybe is not as experienced and there's pushback, how do you handle that conversation in today's market when you're asking for 12 months and another realtor will take it for 90 days or maybe even 6 months?
Yeah. And this goes back to some of the key questions that real estate pros can be, number one, asking of prospective sellers before they choose to acquire the listing, and also being very clear about data that matters most. I don't sit here today and advocate that every agent should run out and ask for a 1-year listing term.
Right.
However, you might need to. One of the key data points to assess with your prospective seller is, what is the average days on market? For comparable properties, how long is it taking for homes to trade? Get real clear, real fast on that right now. And in many of the markets of agents that I coach and train, those agents we're needing to look in the last 90 days, because 180 days ago, the data was different. In looking at those last 90 days and understanding things like, what are the active comparables and how do those compare to the subject property? What are the average days on market? Look at your list to sell ratios. All of these are some of the data points. I know that it's not the sexy part of the job that agents often want to talk about, but if we look at many of the agents who have listings right now that are sitting longer than what was expected in the beginning, one of the number one obstacles is they didn't have the right conversation sitting at the table in the moment that they acquired the listing. And I want to touch on something about that moment, Carrie, is we are in a time in 2025 where every real estate agent needs to write this down, put it on a sticky on your computer. Some of you might even want to go get a tattoo. Not really. I don't mean that. Don't get a tattoo, but it is kind of funny. Here's the thing. Smart professionals are focused on being better than their fee. Be better than your fee. Because what happens when you're better than your fee is that you can stand confidently in the service you provide, the solutions you provide, and what your fee is.
Yes.
All of that is under the umbrella of having the conversations that sometimes sellers don't want to hear, but they need to hear.
But I think like you're just, this is so amazing and so on point. Two takeaways from that is you have incredible systems in place for that. You do have the confidence from it. And I want you to think out there, even if you're newer or maybe been a seasoned agent, when we take, we are the CEOs of our business. When you go have an intelligent conversation armed with facts, I have found not only do I get the listing terms that are most, that needed for that property, but also I have now got a working business relationship with my client, and it's out of respect. And now it sets up to not have those tougher conversations down the road. That's and right. I know so many, and I know I was that agent when you were starting out or newer in the business, you wanted that listing so bad, but it's expensive to take a listing. Even with all the things we have of today, you still have to market and sell that listing. So to go in there and having the confidence for those tough conversations, I think up front will set you up for better success. But it does start with your systems. And I know, Renee, you have some amazing systems in place, but one of those, we talk about going to get, so we'll stay on the listings right now.
Yeah.
You will briefly go through, you have a seller, they've called, you're going to go meet with them. Do you do anything before the listing?
Yes, ma'am. And this is where I want to slow down to speed up a little bit. So slow down the process, speed up the outcome, because you mentioned something, Carrie, that stands out is if you're an agent that's rising up in your career, you're an agent that is putting intention around continuing to increase your average sales price. You are wanting to lean into the luxury market. The good news is it's not difficult. It takes some time, care, and attention. And one of the things that I wished I was told sooner when I was first starting out in my career is find your tribe. Find another agent or two or three who has already done, is already doing, has already built what you want to build. Ask them, hey, listen, I have contacts. I may have a listing lead, for example. And if I have a listing lead, could I lean on you to pull you in? Whether you co-list it, whether you ask the agent, could I offer you X compensation for your time to consult or mentor on this one transaction. The agents that just take the listing and try to muddle their way through it, what I want you to ask yourself in those moments, if you haven't yet built the portfolio and you choose to not lean into other agents around you who have a portfolio that's proven, is what's best for the consumer. Partner up with another agent, and then also reach out to other agents and say, hey, can I shadow you on your next listing consultation? And one of the reasons that's so important, Carrie, is before all the systems, processes, and what I send out, yes, we send a pre-marketing package that gets overnight or couriered with a beautiful presentation, right? We do all that. One of the reasons I pause before I talk about that, though, is because to a rising up agent, what they feel is overwhelm. They feel, I couldn't possibly do this yet. Maybe you're not at that point of scale. Please don't worry. Seek out others who are doing what you want to do, and ask them, because I haven't met a true servant leader in the real estate industry who's building something, who's not interested in saying, yes, I would like to have others around me who are wanting to learn more about what it takes to be a differentiator. If an agent reaches out to me and says, I'd like to learn from you, heck yeah, let's go.
You're going to get lots of people calling you now, Renee.
Well, but here, Carrie, here's the thing: is the alternative is, and I just had this happen this week, is newer rising up agent reached out and said, I have a listing potential. This agent is about a year and a half into the business, smart, sharp, amazing, all good things. Hasn't done a single listing yet. Has a high stakes, high risk, high opportunity with a luxury listing. I don't want any help. Oh, dang, missed opportunity, right? I understand that it feels like you want to do it on your own, and that's okay. We're all independent contractors. The smart agents will say, one is greater than zero, number one. Number two is, I'd rather be able to, through proximity, leverage someone else's experience and success, and then most importantly, deliver the experience the consumer deserves.
Absolutely.
All while the agent learns.
Yes, that's how I learned. I learned in Atlanta, Georgia, under two of the very best in the business, and one is still dear to my heart this day. And you pour into it because that's what you learn. Is someone like yourself to be able to shadow and learn from. So let's move forward with conversations about price, because there's many that we can talk about. I think the most crucial, of course, when we're at the seller's table. Many agents debate this. Do you give a price? Do you go in with a price? When do you talk about price at the listing appointment? And then do you give a price? And then if it's very off, how, those conversations. So this is one of my favorite topics, because it's absolutely one that needs to be discussed, because this makes or breaks you getting the deal. It absolutely sets the pace for that listing, especially if you've taken it overpriced. And and I've been there where I'm like, okay, I'm going to take it. I know it's not priced right, but the repercussions to that always didn't weigh out. So let's talk about price.
I love this conversation, and we probably need a one-day workshop around this. So we'll condense the price strategy conversation in a few moments. Okay. Here's the thing about prices. Number one, the strategies around pricing starts on the first pre-consult phone call. When you are receiving an opportunity from a prospective seller, a great framework that is successful is that you receive that opportunity. Maybe it's an online lead, maybe it's an inbound call, maybe it's a DM on your Instagram, whatever your lead source is. Inbound hand raise, I'm considering listing my property. Pick up the phone, create the opportunity that is on a phone call with the prospective seller that is a pre-consult discovery call. Those pre-consult discovery calls should be no longer than, and this is important, 15 to 20 minutes. If you get beyond 20 minutes, what you're doing is you're getting into consultation mode rather than leading with curiosity. Your whole point to that first call, 15 to 20 minutes max, is for you to be in curiosity. You ask a succession of questions. Now, this is where we get into one of the classes in 2025 that I teach that is in most demand. Is called Your Price Reduction is Not Marketing. We can go real deep on this. I'm going to kind of cut right to the bottom line. Is in that first discovery call, toward the end of the call, around the time that you're about to get the I'm going in for the let's schedule the consultation, a very simple question that you ask the prospective seller is, hey, Carrie, I'm not in front of all my resources right now. I understand that you mentioned you have a Windermere home in Keens Point on the lake. Understand that. Before I take a look at all the information in front of my computer, just out of curiosity, where are you thinking it might land on pricing?
Yes.
Notice the tonality, very casual. There's a reason. If you say to the seller, prospective seller, at any point in your communications, what's the price you're looking to get? What's your bottom line? What's the other lazy language agents are often taught to say? What you're doing with that lazy language is you're creating resistance. Think about it as a consumer standpoint. Do you ever want to give your bottom line? No. So when we just casually ask a question, like just approximate, like where are you thinking this might land? What would be a range maybe? And then I'll go back, we'll review everything and prepare for our in-person strategy session that we have together on Wednesday at 1 p.m. at your property, 123 Banana Street.
Right.
It's that simple.
That is absolutely perfection.
That right there sets the stage for the consultation in person.
Yes. And I love it. I love how that's exactly how I've done it as well, or do it. And it works every time. And like you said, you're not being the dominant force of this is what I think your property should be, because all of a sudden they're going to be on the defensive. So excellent, excellent. So now we're at the table. We've gotten the listing. Signed. We've got all the terms we want. We've agreed on the price. And now, especially, this is the calls that I'm getting. These are the agents that are reaching out to me asking, let's talk about these questions. So it's on the market. It's been 3 weeks on the market, brand new listing, no showings.
Yes.
It's happening. We're seeing that. And we see agents panicking, because I really, in all my years of real estate, have rarely seen just no showings on something. So those, now when we talk about tough conversations, those are tough conversations. And so I know you've got many points as well. And again, this is one I'm passionate about because I want to help everyone. There is a way to handle it, but it's one of those, when we said in the beginning, these are not easy conversations, but having a technique and a method does help.
Yeah. And also having the context of having a portfolio of listings that are similar to the subject property of which you're sitting at the kitchen table with the prospective seller is key. Another benefit of, if you're not yet there as an agent, you're rising up, please, if we haven't driven this home enough, partner with another agent. Because Carrie, when you're a little more seasoned, you have a little more time under your belt. That doesn't make me better. What it makes me is have a larger experience and time period that we can position ourselves sitting at the table. And I'll just think of the last couple listings that we had here in Windermere, where you could find, well, let me back up. In Windermere over the last 90 days, as one example, Windermere and Winter Garden, 2 neighboring communities, 1 of 3 listings is expired or canceled over the last 90 days. Wow. 1 of 3, not of mine, of the marketplace.
Right.
Now let's talk about the last 3 listings that the Funk collection acquired, listed, went to contract with, and sold. I think they're all, the last 3 that I'm going to reference, they're all now closed. Here's the thing. All luxury listings went to contract in a few days, multiple offer situation. Even one had a bit of an obstacle where, as sometimes happens, contract fell through. We had positioned that seller so well due to the marketing that was activated that the seller had backup offers and waiting in the wings. Did not miss a beat. Now, when you talk about that moment, Carrie, at the kitchen table, is this becomes experience that we can leverage in the moment. If you have a listing that you are wondering as a listing agent, should I acquire this listing? And you're concerned that maybe it's not going to get any showings, you have to look back and say, well, what are the last 3, 5, 10, 15 listings I've served in this subject community or neighborhood? And what did I experience? Because I don't have that context necessarily, Carrie. Right. However, what is that confidence rooted in? And I'm about to say something that's not popular. I get it. So sometimes when I say unpopular things, I ask agents, if you're watching this live, if you're watching it on the replay, like type in chat the little eye rolling emoji, like just put the eye rolls up front because it's going to happen. In this type of market that many agents are faced with, this is critical. You must picture yourself standing at the front door of that prospective seller's property as you're about to walk into the listing consultation in person. You stand at the front door, just envision yourself there. You're going to press the doorbell. You know the drill. You're already looking around to, get a feel for the property. You press the doorbell, and this is the embedded command in your mind as a professional. I'm walking in. I'm confident. I focus on being better than my fee. This opportunity in front of me is my choice to make an educated decision if I'm going to choose to acquire this listing. Not I'm walking in with shaking knees to see if I'm going to get hired in another job interview.
Right. I love it.
This is the time when we have to be professional, educated, and armed with all the right information and communication skills so that we can have that confidence, because many agents should be thinking about, should I walk away and say, thank you for the opportunity, but this is not the right opportunity for me in this moment. It's better to be agent number 2. Absolutely. In many cases, when you're in a market that is having some type of shift. Let the agent who will buy a listing, take any listing, drag their hands through a bed of glass. And don't be the one that overpromises and underdelivers. Let someone else do that. You be the one that's focused on, I know I can't buy my reputation back. My reputation means there are times I need to, and just say it, like close the book. Thank you, Carrie. It has been a great honor to share time with you. Thank you for welcoming me in your home. This opportunity under these terms is not something that the business will allow me to invest in. Right. I wish you very well. And should we ever feel that we could realign differently based on the following terms, I'm your person.
Yes. And, but I've had, and right on 100% everything you're saying. But I did want to share another perspective of it. I took a list, and this was a couple years ago. It was overpriced. Yeah. And I told them, I said, this is overpriced. We're not going to have any showings on this, but I loved this property. It was a beautiful estate property. And I said, I'll take it. And if we have no showings in 2 weeks, then can we put it at my price? And I said, but that would be the only way I'm going to take this listing. Now, they agreed to that. And we had a mutual respect, no showings for the first 2 weeks, just like I told them, and we were overpriced. We lowered it to the correct ones. I ended up getting both sides of it. It was an amazing thing. So it's not, I love, like, I'm just sharing, we are sharing these conversations that not every listing is the same. Not every closing is the same. But these tools and tough conversations, to me, will help you in your business, because we've had to learn them. We put, many coaches, many conversations, and 20 years later, there's been a lot of table sitting at the kitchen.
How I said, drag your hand through a bed of glass? Yeah, I could say that because I've done it. Right?
Yes.
I've
Uh,
I've done the
but
first agent thing, and then you get fired because you overpromise and underdeliver, and you go,
exactly.
"Dang it."
And so yeah, so learn from us, or take some of, our wins and our losses. And I loved what you said, the confidence. I think confidence matters. And what brings confidence? Confidence is when you yourself believe you truly have the tools, to win those listings. And, I am very passionate about EXP Luxury with our toolkits, because I believe wholeheartedly it empowers our agents to go in and have that toolkit. Now, maybe you're not with EXP and you're doing great as well. I say for every agent, if you've got the toolkit that you believe in, it does bring that success and confidence at the listing table. Okay, to move on to some of the others, price is always, like you said, we could do it that all day. And the others is, you've got these listings when the low appraisal comes back, major inspection issue comes up, or, they're got it priced and we've all agreed on it, but they're still cutting those thin margins. And then it comes back to your commission. All of these things come up in all transactions pretty much. It's just maintaining them. What I love is when you have a system in place and you are confident with your tools, when some of these landmines, I call, happen, which they will, you still are tried and true. Your marketing campaigns are here. It helps those conversations. But just to go into deeper, if you want to pick one of those, I know that, these are common instances that come up. How do you navigate those? How do you navigate someone that's leaning on your commission because their margins are thin on what they're getting back? Maybe they have to bring money to closing.
Yeah, and a lot of that, Carrie, is going to be rooted in we all in the industry realize in 2024 it was perhaps one of the biggest regulation change that the industry ever saw, and that regulation change in many cases has prompted what I see as an improvement to the consumer experience with agents that are doing it properly, as well as an opportunity for having conversations around fee structure, expectations around fees for services much earlier on. So I'm quite bullish on.
Are we there? I think we lost Renee for 1
There we
second.
go.
She'll be
There we
back.
go. I think
Yes.
we got it. Just so you all know, I just hit a rainstorm, and that doesn't usually happen, but that's okay because I think my camera
Hey,
just went out.
we overcome, right? That's what we do as
Right?
realtors.
Give me one sec. You have audio. You don't have camera. Give
Yeah,
me a
we have
second.
audio. So, yep.
I'm going to keep going, and I will keep going. That is very odd. Let me do a reset real quick. Let me just refresh real quick.
No worries. So when we get back, we have been discussing top conversations, and she is such a pro, and I've loved all of this. If you've got questions, if you're out there listening, be sure to send them in. We would love to hear your questions and get your feedback. We're streaming, so we can't see the crowd right now. We're just seeing each other. So, but we appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in, and we're going to continue a few more minutes with our tough conversations when it comes to luxury real estate. But as Renee said, you can take, my motto is luxury is a service. It's a mindset, and you can take many of these tools, whether you're in the luxury market or not. These are conversations that are being had.
That's right. So we were talking about if agents feel the pressure to make changes to their fee and menu of services. Here's the thing is, be very clear in the beginning. This, Carrie, roots back to when the agreements are signed. If you are representing a seller, the menu of services, the services for fees, your value proposition, all of the things that seller is going to gain as a result of entering into an agreement and hiring you, that's all talked about before the paperwork is even signed. And then go onto the buyer side, which this is so much of a win for the consumer and the industry. We've leveled the playing field. Every agent must have an exclusive buyer broker agreement signed before they show a house. That is a better experience. That's the opportunity for us as professionals who should never be afraid to say, here's the solutions I provide. Here's the opportunity that I will provide you based on what you're looking to achieve as a buyer. And here's the fee of services.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. And what we find is that most consumers are looking to work with a professional and value that type of clarity. And I don't think most consumers, at least haven't found this to be the case, certainly in the last year, are expecting any of us to work for free. When we talk about agents feeling the pressure to adjust their fee or compress, or if we're later on in the transaction and the agent says, well, to bridge a gap, I'll do this or that or the other, I'm going to encourage you once again, have a strong mentor on that conversation. It's too scenario based to truly give guidance without a whole lot of questions, Carrie. What I see agents do wrong on this topic is they quickly revert like a one-trick pony, like I have one tool in my tool chest to, I'll just change my fee to make it happen. And I'm like, hold on a second. What other professional that you work with, your dentist, your financial advisor, the list goes on, acts that way.
Right.
Most don't. So pause, take a breath. It's not abnormal for a consumer to ask, can a fee be adjusted or can we renegotiate XYZ? That's not abnormal. Heck, I'm a consumer. I do that. What's abnormal is that the recipient of that question doesn't have multiple tools in their tool chest to see a pathway that is appropriate for all and helps you sustain your business, because we all got to feed our family.
Yep. Well, the new regulations and all that, I'm great with all of that, because I feel like it's, for so many years we would work with buyers and half the agents never did have a buyer's agreement. Yep. Now, to your point, I had an agent call in the other day and stress that the seller wanted them to drop their commission. Now they had a listing agreement, is now under contract. They've done all the marketing and they're going to closing. And again, this is why we're talking about this stuff today. It's tough conversations. And the thing is they have an agreement. Why should they amend the agreement when there was nothing wrong? They just wanted more money at the end. And so I think again, those are conversations to be had. That's now with the seller. Of today, we do have our buyer's agreement. The thing that comes up with the tough conversations that we get asked for this is still, I think a lot of consumers are still programmed that the seller is going to pay, that commission. And when there's now a negotiation, and when that negotiation doesn't come out of what they've already agreed in the buyer's agreement, that's when I think, again, on the buy side, those conversations are tough.
I have a helpful question, a very helpful question and approach on the buy side. And this is a post 2024 regulation change approach. First, a slight bit of context. In Florida, as real estate agents, it was very uncommon pre-2024 in Florida for agents to utilize buyer broker exclusive agreements. It just wasn't very common in Florida. And so much so that prior to the regulation change, I raised my hand and say, never acquired one. We were a real estate team that was showing homes and under no agreement with the buyer. Of course, level playing field, regulation change, now they're required. And thank goodness, I'm so grateful, such a benefit. Here's the thing. I get this question all the time from agents. What if I'm representing a buyer and I'm presenting the buyer broker agreement, and that buyer or broker agreement says that the fee for services is X? Buyer says to buyer's agent, oh, golly, I'm worried though. I don't know if I want to or am able to, or whatever the concern is, pay X for your services. Buyer's agent says, and if this is true, I'm going to share a bit of our communication around it, because this is true in our market and specifically for the Funk collection, is in the last year, we haven't met a seller in negotiation that isn't open-minded to negotiating concessions. All sellers have been very fair and reasonable to understand Sellers are after the net executed price. They want to know what is all in, what is that seller going to net? And so for the last year, we found that most sellers are very open-minded to provide some level of concession, which covers all or most of this fee. That said, it's another negotiating data point within a contract. Buyer will say sometimes, Carrie, but what if the concession that we negotiate that the seller is willing to provide doesn't cover this fee that you put here? Your response as a buyer's agent is simply, then we need to come back together and determine if you're overpaying for a property.
That is excellent. I love that.
That's simple. That's simple. And remember that this is just another item that is negotiated within the contract terms.
Yes. These are so important, and like you said, that's with buyers, it's a whole different strategy, the conversations with them as well, and really educating them in this market, because remember, we are, they hear the news, we've heard all kinds of things, they don't even have to pay a commission anymore, just all kinds of things. So it is up to us as the professionals to have these tough conversations. And I just love, all of this. As we're wrapping up, do you have any questions from the audience? I know we have got so many different topics still to talk about, but we wanted just to open it up to you all as we are coming back around with, again, the mindset and the confidence. Let's see. So Renee, are you selling? Should you renegotiate the purchase price?
I see living in Maria Island, living on Anna Maria Island. Oh, yes, fellow Floridian. Awesome. Yeah, there you go. I love it. Am I expressing that you should renegotiate the purchase price? What I'm encouraging each and every professional to do is to be very clear at what items on the contract are negotiable. And I realize that every market might bear different strategies in negotiations. Again, from our context here in Central Florida, what we've seen is we haven't met a seller who isn't open-minded, both when we represent sellers and when we represent buyers. All the sellers are open-minded to get the deal done. Now, does that mean that the buyers should write very competitive offers that are compelling? Yes. And concessions, which could be used toward covering the fee of the commission, is just another data point to negotiate. So question from Anna Maria Island. No, I'm not per se saying renegotiate the purchase price. However, purchase price could be a data point that might impact how much concession the seller offers.
Yes, absolutely. And there's many ways to do that. I agree. I mean,
this is where we, Carrie, when we started talking, we talked about tools in our tool chest, and sometimes they get more dull because we haven't needed to use them. And sometimes we pull them out and go,
yeah.
It's like strategies. This is a fun,
yes.
This is a fun market. If you have mind trash in your mind, where you get like sometimes mind trash or drunk monkey, where we get like, we tell ourselves this can't be done or whatever it is, stop. This market that we're all faced with, it's a skill-based market where we get to be creative. We get to think about different ways. We can have fun. We can negotiate. We can deal doctor. We can bridge gaps. We can, heck, broker opens are back in our market. You know how excited I am, Carrie, that we can actually have caravans again? Properties stay on the market long enough to drive maximum exposure.
Yes.
Skill-based market.
Love it. All right. One of my final questions, and this one's a tough one. When we had all of these compiled from agents wanting to know these things, and I mean, we've all been there, or I'll fall on the sword and say I have, and it is the most heart-wrenching is when a seller calls and says, and even in the good days, whether it was 6 months or a year or 3 months or whenever, they're making a change with an agent.
Yeah.
what do you do? Do you take up for yourself? Do you fight for the listing? What strategies? I know there's so many different techniques, and I have a lot I can say about this too, because I feel like, in today's world, from that moment we step in, of always documenting the following up. If you really take a look at your business, are there any holes in it? And I've said that for me for years when I've been a luxury listing agent. What can I do better? But those are heart wrenching, especially when you put your money, your time, your marketing, and the seller wants to, the property's not moving, and he or she wants to make a move.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Okay, a couple things that just came to mind is, number one, you and I talked a lot about things we can be doing at the listing consultation table and even at the pre-call. A lot of these obstacles, especially in 2025, are fixed in that moment.
Yes.
A lot of these obstacles. However, I'm also seeing a subset of the marketplace right now where listing agent may have acquired a listing, and actually it's the same on either side, buyer or listing, but you acquire a client. You acquire it under terms or like a condition in the marketplace that was one set of conditions. And then if the market is shifting, you and the seller could be chasing different conditions. Sellers, listing agent, market have to be aligned like this at all times. So you made me think of one thing when you asked that question is seller updates on the listing side. Agents must be doing those once a week. And I'm not talking about sending an email off and going, here you go, let's send the email. In my marketing class that's called Your Price Reduction is Not Marketing, one of the things we talk about is a differentiator on how you can do seller updates differently that stay connected, because sellers don't need a data dump. Sellers need data dialogue. So if we're sending listing updates via email, I'm going to ask you to pause. All right. And I want you to think about some different ways, i.e. Google Meets, Zoom, phone calls, some different ways. Okay. Next thing, if ever you're in an agreement or you're earning the opportunity for business with any consumer client, and they no longer want to have you represent them, or you're getting fired per se, it is very simple. There are 11 words that change the way you do business. Those 11 words are, what could I have done differently to have earned your business? You put your consumer hat on and you realize those moments sometimes are tough, but if you literally say, I'm in my seat as a consumer, I want to absorb every lesson. I want to listen for the lessons. And sometimes you're going to get beat up. Carrie, how many times have you got beat up and made decisions where you go, oh man, that didn't work out?
And I learned.
You learned.
Yes.
You listened to the lessons and you took that. So I hear that sometimes from either, maybe the seller wants to go a different direction. Once again, it's always better to be agent number 2.
Yes.
Maybe your best friend or mother-in-law's friend or whoever it is that's connected. You see that in most Facebook groups is so-and-so didn't hire me, but we're so close and I'm mad at them. No. If they didn't hire you, the question we ask ourselves is, what could I have done differently to earn their business? There's probably a gap. Maybe they don't know you focus on luxury. Maybe you're too luxury and you lose a deal because they don't think you'll take their rising up price or a price they deem as not luxury.
That is very true. I love, though, what you said of asking what could I have done to earn your business or done better. Those are powerful words and work. And to also recap on what Renee said, touching base weekly and more than just, like you said, that email is crucial. The other tidbit I would give to realtors is they would fall in the trap of, you're following up. Many sellers do want, they're testing you of what you know, that you need to know how many has anything else sold in their neighborhood, because they certainly know, and they expect, us as professionals to know. So all of those are, I think, ways to, as you said, this is more prevention. We're doing our very best, and those lead to maximum results instead of the other. So what if my clients is considering doing a remodel to improve price and desirability and stand out from the neighbors?
That's a great point, Karen. This is, again, showing the information, not telling. Being a big advocate, consumers don't need data dump. We are exhausted as consumers with data. Data's everywhere. If we're just sending data and not showing and being in dialogue real time with your computer, look at the information, then I want you to just go ahead and stamp on your forehead, congrats, I'm Google. Congrats, I'm ChatGPT. It's not enough to send information. And why I share that with you, Karen, is because if a prospective seller is saying, should I remodel? Should I do insert anything? Like, should I paint? Should I remodel? Should I update the kitchen appliances? Whatever it is. This goes back to the consultation sitting at the kitchen table where you're showing your screen and you're saying, let's take a look at together the last 30, 60, 90 days of comparable properties that are active, pending, sold, that are comparable to this subject property, and compare them. So my question, Karen, would be, is the bulk of those properties, are they remodeled in the same way the seller's considering remodeling? And what is the price that was attached to that? Does that sales price warrant your seller for them to choose to do the work to remodel? When the seller sees it, let's take a look at this kitchen with Wolf appliances as compared to the subject property that doesn't have Wolf appliances, and here's what it's sold for, or it's pending and it was pending in 5 days where all the other properties are sitting 80 days. You assess it together by showing them. And that would be how you make that decision based on what is their expectation on how long they want the property to be on the market. Is this they need to get it off their desk ASAP? Is this they're fine waiting for what we expect as average days on market? What is the return of their blood, sweat, tears, pain in the butt of actually doing the remodel? Because remodeling takes time and it's always twice as long as everybody thinks.
And expensive.
Twice the budget, twice as long.
Many of our sellers live out of state or country. How do you deal with that, Renee, regarding your pre-listing package?
Yes, I love that question. I am not an advocate for digital versions of your pre-list package. However, I don't see Anna Maria Island. I don't see your name, but I just want to say,
is it Linda?
I want to say fellow Floridian. Yes.
Yes. Linda Moore.
Yes. Hi, Linda. Okay. So here's the thing is, here in Orlando, about 50% of the Funk Collection's business for over 20 years has been in the sector of vacation homes that are zoned for short-term rental. So that's about 50% of our sales. And we're very accustomed to working with prospects, both buy side and list side, that sometimes we've never even met in person because they own investment properties here, but they're not here. They're elsewhere. If they're in the US, they get overnighted a pre-listing package. If anybody wants to see my pre-listing package, like drop in comments, Carrie, we can do another side conversation, right? Because I should have had it here. Okay. Drop it in comments if Carrie and I need to come back together and show it. Here's the thing. In the US, it's overnighted. If they're international, we use the crutch of a digital, but that's the only time, because timing from initial discovery phone call to actual consultation is usually too tight to warrant sending it overseas. That's actually a package, because I send a box. I mean, it's a box with a magnetic close and a bow and the whole 9 yards.
Professional.
So it depends. They can depend.
Yes, I know everyone would love to see the pre-listing package. So what we can do is I'll get with Jeremy, and the ones that are on here, we'll get it sent to them.
I love it.
Jeremy, I know you're behind the scenes.
And Jeremy and Carrie, I got to say, the pre-list package that the Funk Collection utilizes has been 10x'd in elevation since we have EXP Luxury.
Woo!
Because we've been doing this luxury thing for a lot of years. I was at EXP a long, long time before there was ever any EXP Luxury. And I got to say, with the now benefits that we get as an EXP luxury agent and team, it knocks it out of the park. It's hard for anybody to compete with the leverage that we as EXP luxury agents have.
Well, Renee, you have been absolutely fabulous. And I know we could talk, like you said, when we did our pre-talk, it was forever. And I love talking with you. I love your mind. I love your heart for this business. And thank you for all of our listeners for being with us during this time. This is for all agents. We are not just EXP for this. We do talk about our services at EXP, and with you, our luxury program, I believe, is fabulous. Whether you are in the luxury market or not, it is a type of service to give to your clients, and it's already built in and ready, and it's definitely a toolkit for this market. But again, we love realtors. I love our profession, and I love us growing as a community. And I see the heart in it when you are on the ground with realtors, and it is a tough business. People don't see, the consumer side does not see what we go through to get these, and the perseverance and what it takes to be successful in this business. But anyway, thank you for our community. We are here monthly. Definitely, Renee is a luxury legend and leader. And again, we thank you so much for your time. And we hope to see you next month on Luxury Legends and Leaders. Thanks everyone.
Connect with me